Hello, welcome to this video on economies and diseconomies of scale. In this video we're going to look at different types of economies of scale, diseconomies of scale, and the difference between internal and external economies of scale, as well as relating this to our concept of cost curves. So let's start off. What do we mean by economies of scale? Well, economies of scale arise when unit costs fall, average cost falls, as output increases. So for example, if I order 10 lots of supplies, I might pay £2 for each item. But if I was to order 50, I might get a better deal, maybe £1.50 per item. If I was to order 100, I might get them for £1 each. So here, my average cost, my unit cost is falling as I increase the scale of my production. Let's have a quick look at an example here in a table. We have outputs, different levels of output. We have fixed costs, and we're assuming here that variable costs are £100 per unit. So I multiply my variable cost £100 per unit by my output to get variable costs. Here's my total cost, and if I divide by the number of units, I get my cost per unit, my average cost. And we can see here that as the level of output increases, the cost per unit, the average cost, falls. And this really is because the fixed costs are being spread over more units. So as I increase output, unit costs fall. So this business looks like it would be benefiting from economies of scale. If I was to illustrate this using a chart, as the output increases, Q1, Q2, Q3, then the average cost falls, and this would be my cost curve here. As we move along this cost curve, we are experiencing economies of scale. Now we often talk about internal versus external economies of scale. Internal economies of scale are falling unit costs enjoyed by an individual business increasing in size. For example, if a business makes a much larger order for supplies, that's an example of purchasing internal economies of scale. External economies of scale are falling unit costs enjoyed by all the businesses in the industry as the industry increases in size. So for example, here is the Formula One industry in the south of the UK, and as this industry increases in size, the average cost of things like parts and supplies will decrease, and things like transport. So let's go through some types of internal economies of scale. That's 5 that we need to know. Here are our first 3. The first one is technical economies of scale. This is where the business, as it gets larger, can employ more efficient machinery, spend money on more efficient machinery, and because it's more efficient, this reduces average costs. Here we have an example. The second one is purchasing, often sometimes known as bulk buying economies of scale. As we order greater amounts of supplies, we can negotiate greater discounts per unit with suppliers. Again, this brings down costs. And the last one is managerial. As the business grows in size, we can employ specialist personnel, so a specialist accountant or a specialist person in the head of recruitment. And because they're more efficient, specialised, more productive, this lowers average costs. Our final 2 are financial and marketing. As a business grows in size, it might be considered less risky by banks, so they may offer us lower interest rates. And marketing, as we grow in size, if we make one TV advert, for example, which we can use in different markets, it effectively lowers the average cost of attracting customers. External economies of scale come from the industry as a whole. So for example, if we base ourselves in a region which is renowned for a particular industry, we might get more highly skilled workers, a greater talent pool. And these workers are more efficient, and so we can benefit from more productivity and lower cost. Cooperation, if we have industries in the same region and we partner together to develop new technology, for example, and become more efficient, this might lower costs. And support services, if we base in an area that is well known for a particular area, a particular industry, for example, the car industry, other businesses that support that industry will locate nearby. So for example, a tyre manufacturer might locate near a car manufacturer. And so we're going to benefit from that the size of that industry in that area, and this will give us lower transport costs, bringing down overall costs. So how does this relate to the long run average cost curve? The long run average cost curve is sometimes known as the envelope curve, and it's based on the assumption here that we haven't got a fixed level of output. When we look at the short run average cost curve, we said that one factor of production was fixed, maybe land or capital. Here we take that assumption away. And if average costs are falling, then we would say the firm is experiencing economies of scale. If it's rising, we call this diseconomies of scale. We'll come on to this a little bit later. If the average cost is constant, we'd say they're experiencing constant returns to scale. The working assumption is that a business will choose the lowest or least cost method of production in the long run. So here is our long run average cost curve, and we can see that as we increase the size of production from Q1 to Q2, we benefit from economies of scale. Our cheapest form of production, our most efficient, is this level of output here, Q3. That we call the point of productive efficiency. It's the lowest possible average cost that we can produce at before our average costs start to rise again. So the minimum efficient scale is the scale of output where internal economies of scale have been fully exploited. So we've exploited all the economies of scale, and we've got here to our minimum efficient scale. That's the point at which we start to be as low cost as possible. For many businesses, it's possible to reach the minimum efficient scale. So that, for example, here this business only has to reach the output of Q1, and then average costs start to rise. For some businesses, however, average costs keep on falling, regardless of the size of the output. So there might be extensive economies of scale. And we often call these natural monopolies because it's quite difficult to compete with these businesses. These businesses, if they're really large, if they're massive businesses, will be able to operate at the lowest cost. And so, therefore, they'll gather up, these large businesses will gather up the whole market. Think tap water company, for example. If the external economies of scale occur, well, actually that would cause a shift in the average cost curve. Internal economies of scale are enjoyed by the business as it gets bigger. External economies of scale are enjoyed by all firms, not as they get bigger, but as the industry gets bigger. So if the industry has got bigger and average costs have gone down, then we would see a shift downwards in the average cost curve. So internal economies of scale moves along the curve, external economies of scale would shift the curve for our business. Now let's move on to diseconomies of scale. Diseconomies of scale are when, as the business increases the scale of its operations, there is a rise in unit cost. So we can see on the right hand side here, as output increases, average cost rises, we'd say that the business is experiencing diseconomies of scale. Why is this bad for a business? Well, it will make them less competitive. They're going to have to raise their price or maintain the same price and earn less profit. What might be reasons for this? Well, there might be issues to do with communication. As the business has grown so big, it's difficult to understand what's going on or to communicate with different parts of the business. It might be to do with coordination and control. If we've got lots of different people working in our organisation, it might be difficult to coordinate all the different deliveries and where this package is going and that package is going and so on. So actually become less efficient. And alienation, if a business becomes really large, then workers might become demotivated. They lose that personal touch. For example, my ID number for my old job, 873376, I found particularly demotivating when I received an email saying, "Dear 873376." So in this video, we've looked at different types of economies of scale, diseconomies of scale, and the difference between external and internal economies of scale. That's it. Thanks very much for listening.